Ja, goedemorgen, Frank Olstoren hier van MCS. Welkom bij deze webinar samen met Advantech. Ik geef zo eventjes het woord aan Paul Conway. De webinar zal in het Engels gaan. En dank dat jullie hiervoor aan wilden melden. Het is een beetje creatief omgaan met het introduceren en delen en motiveren van iedereen om uiteindelijk te kijken hoe je zo handig en zo efficiënt mogelijk met je oplossingen, met je toepassingen aan de gang kan. Dit WebAccess platform waar het vandaag over gaat, zou origineel geïntroduceerd en afgetrapt worden op onze kennissessie medio maart. Nou, door omstandigheden toen eigenlijk alweer 2-3 weekjes geleden kon dat toen niet doorgaan. Dus we hebben nu voor de webinar gekozen. Advantech doet dit overigens zelf ook vaker, dus die zijn daar ervaren in. Het WebAccess platform is net recent helemaal van een nieuw jasje voorzien en nieuwe features. En daarom heet het nu het Generation 2 platform. En het is vooral bedoeld om efficiënt en makkelijk je devices, je routers in het veld eigenlijk online te krijgen, te synken met een centrale portal waarin je eigenlijk al je settings, al je software, al je configuratie en zaken kan beheren, je routers kan groeperen, toe kan kennen aan klanten, dat soort zaken. Dus echt een volledig efficiënt en mooi router management systeem. Goed. Tot zover even mijn korte introductie. Leuk dat jullie er allemaal zijn. Hopelijk hebben jullie er wat aan. De webinar komt ook naderhand als een opgenomen link beschikbaar. Dus kan je hem nog eens nakijken. Ik ga nu het woord geven aan Paul, die zichzelf zal introduceren. En die jullie in een 3 kwartier, klein uurtje mee zal nemen door de features van dit platform. Goed, hij zal ook verder de Q&A, vragen, antwoorden, zal hij verder begeleiden. So Paul, I hope you understand my Dutch introduction.
Perfectly.
Yeah, I talked all the fancy stuff about you. No, just kidding. So I would like to hand over now to you to kick off this webinar. Sure. And I will mute myself for the rest of the webinar. It's up to you to deal and monitor questions if they come up. Yeah, take it away, please.
Okay, sure. Well, first, thank you very much, Frank, for your kind introduction. I did offer to do this webinar in Dutch, but we decided I should do it in English. So I will carry on in English today. Thank you to Frank and MCS for the invitation to present WebAccess DMP Generation 2, which is one of Advantech's cloud platform solutions for device management. So without further ado, I'll just get into what we're going to talk through today. So today, first off, I just give a brief introduction to what is WebAccess DMP. And then that will be followed by an overview of the DMP Gen 2 main concepts and features, so things we have introduced to the platform in the second generation. So before I get into the detail about the product itself, WebAccess DMP, I think it's useful to see an overview picture of where the different pieces of solutions fit in an overall solution architecture. So today I'm talking about WebAccess DMP Gen 2, which is this bit here in the bottom right of your picture. And very often we get presented solution stacks as stacks, one thing on top of another, which leads to, from your device side all the way through to your integration side with your third-party applications and services. But actually often the story isn't that simple or confined or constrained. And very often solutions are standalone solutions that interact with different aspects of systems or could interact with different aspects of systems. So I think this visual helps to understand that each individual component of the stack is not itself constrained by needing to be part of a full stack. It can be used on its own or it can be filled out into a full solution stack. So today we're talking about WebAccess DMP, the platform. We use this platform for these 4 things here: provisioning devices, managing devices, monitoring the health of those devices, and then providing analysis for those devices. During today's talk, I will introduce AssureSync which is our device configuration sync engine using device models feature, which I'll talk about soon. The platform enables UI and API enabled zero-touch mass deployment, which is a very powerful feature. I will introduce Assure Auth, which I'm just going to, on the right-hand side here, Assure Auth is our entire security stack. So I will explain how and why we do the security between our devices and our platform. And we will talk about Edge Intelligence Delivery, which is also powered by AssureSync in our device configuration engine, and health monitoring of devices at the edge. Specifically, the platform is designed and intended to be used with cellular routers and cellular IoT gateways. We can deliver edge intelligence, so any type of application can be delivered to those edge device types, and we can create rules and enrichment at the device layer, which themselves can create alternative means of publishing and representing data, either via the WebAccess DMP platform or directly to third-party services and platforms. So that's why this piece is shown up here. Advantech does have a solution stack, so you can use that if you wish, but you're absolutely not confined to that. And you can have your own third-party application services that you can enable through WebAccess DMP and the devices at the edge of the network. So with that picture in mind, I guess I will continue on to a further detailed explanation of what we do in WebAccess DMP. So as I touched on briefly in that diagram, it's a remote device provisioning, monitoring, and management platform. The devices that are supported on the platform today are cellular and non-cellular routers and IoT gateways. So cellular routers and gateways, like, and I believe most of you are familiar with these. So our V2 routers include the LR77 and UR5i and XR5i, etc., that kind of product line. V3 routers includes the SmartFlex, SmartMotion, SmartStart product lines, Spectra V3 product lines, if you're familiar with those. And the V3 routers also include the ICR 1600 and ICR 3200 families. V4 routers are on the way, so they haven't hit the market yet, but this platform is designed to support them when they become available. So as I introduced at the very beginning, this is generation 2. So we've had generation 1 of WebAccess DMP for a few years now. And we've learned a lot from having it out there. And when we decided we needed to redesign and re-implement it, there were a number of key design goals that we considered right from the beginning. And at the very top of that list was security. So security is one of the top concerns for all remote management platforms and for remote assets in the field, remote devices. So this entire platform has been designed from the beginning with security in mind. But also we learned that we need to be able to scale. So once you have a platform and you connect devices to it, we need to make sure that the platform itself is scalable and can scale with the needs that grow over time in your remote asset farm that needs to be managed. And clearly reliability is a big concern. So again, if you're going to have a remote device, a remote asset management platform, you need to be able to rely on that platform. So it needs to be as reliable as if you had that device in your hand physically. So you know that what you see is what you get, and what is represented on the platform is true to the representation of what is in that device in the field. We also wanted to make the platform usable, so make it easy to do the things that you do most often. And of course, usability is subjective, and everybody will have an opinion on usability. So it's never going to be perfect, but because we put it as one of our primary design goals, and we worked through a number of what we considered to be really important use cases to simplify the usage of the platform, we hope that we have introduced a much better user experience to the entire platform and product design. Extensibility is one of the things that we felt was really important, and we've built the platform from scratch on top of our own internal APIs. So again, I'll talk about that a bit more later on. But what that really means is the APIs have not been added at the end as something that you might want to do later. We built our entire user experience and user interface using our own API set. So everything that you see on the platform that makes the platform usable relies on the fact that we built the platform as an extensible platform from the beginning. Again, we'll talk about that a bit more later on, and that leads to interoperability. So it's really important that the platform is not just a standalone platform, but that it fits within an ecosystem of platforms. So that's what makes it interoperable. To help us with that, it's from the device side up, we've introduced the usage of lightweight M2M as a means of, or as a protocol for carrying data from the device to the platform itself. And then also on the platform side, we've added all the APIs and extensible APIs. We've added the ability to do your own user module extensions, so you can create your own edge intelligence applications. You can add them to the platform using the APIs as you wish. You can create your own user interface for those user modules on the platform as you wish, and you can deploy them as you wish, either driven through the API itself or also driven through the user interface that you can create yourself. So we've introduced a number of concepts to create more interoperability for the entire product family. At the end of this presentation, these are the links, I guess, that you'll be interested in. So the first one is the main entry point to the platform itself. It's called wadump.com. We also have the API gateway, which is another entry point. That's api.wadump.com. And we have our documentation platform, which is built on docs.wadump.com. We have also created a YouTube channel, which has at the moment got a few simple introduction concepts to start you off with. So things you might want to begin with, like how do I create an account on the platform? How do I put a device on the platform, etc. So they're very short YouTube tutorial videos to help you do things like that. Okay, so that's the introduction about what is WebAccess DMP. Now I'm going to talk about some of the main concepts and features of the platform itself. So again, just to do the quick introduction to the architecture and what the features are. So this is a rebuild from scratch. And I think that is important, because what that meant was we were able to leverage best-in-class technologies that have become available over the last number of years for enterprise cloud software development. And that is significant because there has been a lot of key technology invented and created for these types of purpose. So it was important for us to be able to leverage and use those technologies. The whole thing is built as a microservices architecture, which means that it is facilitating scale, redundancy, reliability, and security. We are introducing what we call AssureAuth, which is our security tagline, if you will, but that's really a whole representation of the entire PKI stack, device authentication, certificate exchange, and a number of other things that I will introduce to you soon that create our full security stack. This platform is enabled from the ground up for APIs. So again, just to reiterate, our own user interface. So what you see as the platform today is entirely built on our own publicly available API endpoints, which basically means that if you don't like the out-of-the-box user experience, you could use the exact same API endpoints and build your own user experience. We're also introducing AssureSync, which is our one of the key technology components in our configuration engine. So we have created the concept of device models in our platform, which means that for every configuration item, for every device that you physically have, we have two states. So we have what we call a desired state and a reported state. A reported state is the state that the device itself has reported to the platform. So that's how we know that what you see on your user interface is what's in the device, because we can only show you what the device itself has told us it has. A desired state is what you control and configure via the platform itself. And that's something that through the user interface, it's obviated as to what desired state you have created in the first place. And then in the back end, we have what we call a sync engine, which makes sure that if you have configured a desired state via the platform, then that state will be delivered to the device, if at all possible. And you will know if it's not possible and it can't be done. Together with that, we've introduced this real-time configuration status. So what that means is on your user interface, you will see a timestamp that dates the submitted desired state from the platform to the device, and also the reported device state. So that's what the device has reported back up to the platform. And we get very visible status indicators of what the current status is via the platform at any time. It's a full multi-tenancy platform. There is no limit to the number of companies in the hierarchy, and we use the term company. A company is a tenant. So it's also possible to have, once you've created a tenancy, you can have subtenants, or you can use a tenancy as a logical group of devices if you wish, as part of your tree of tenancies. We maintain a separate influx database per company for data monitoring purposes, which means that it's not possible to basically cross-contaminate the companies or the tenancies in the database backend. We also provide the authentication for each particular individual service that's possible on the platform via granular user permissions. So it is possible to, well, in fact, it's required that as you add users to the platform, you must specify which tenant they belong to, and you must specify which permissions each user is entitled to have on a per company basis, because we do allow users to be in more than one company. So we don't limit the number of companies every user can be in, but for every company they are in, you must specify their unique permission set on a per company basis. So what that really means is for every user that's added to the platform, there is full authorization and granularity to what they're entitled to do within the confines of each of the tenancies or companies that they are assigned to. We support user modules on the platform, again, right out of the box. There are many user modules that are supported. Now, those of you that are familiar with the Advantech routers will be familiar with user modules. So user modules are how we extend the capabilities and create bespoke and custom capabilities, or if you like, you can call this edge intelligence for each of the routers in the product line. So straight out of the box, and I'll show you this very soon. There's a list of user modules you can select and deploy to all of the routers that you have in your tenancy. We support versioning of user modules on the platform. So when you get presented with the menu of available user modules, you will also see the available versions of those user modules. So you can select which version you wish to deploy. And this becomes very useful for yourself later on if you wish to create your own edge intelligence by building your own user modules. So you can create your own user modules using the SDKs that come with the routers themselves. And once you've created the user module, you can add them to the platform using the APIs that enable you to add them to the platform. And you can support more than one version, so you can have as many versions as you wish on the platform. Then you can create your own user interface using JSON schema. And you can select which companies you wish your user modules to be made available to. So again, there's a lot of granular capability in terms of user module management available to you, presented on the user interface, and all driven through the APIs. For every device on the platform, automatically it will deliver secure remote device health monitoring. So it's built in. You can turn it off if you don't wish to have it. That's absolutely configurable and up to you. But the but the default position is the device will start reporting its health status every 15 minutes as soon as the client is added to that device. Everything here is done securely. We use MQTT over TLS to publish the health monitoring data. The data that you can see, and I'll show you some examples of this very soon, is all presented in a time series database. We have leveraged Grafana, for example, as one of the tools for presenting data. And we store the data in InfluxDB, which is a time series database, which basically means that you get the default view, and I'll show you this very soon, which is the last 24 hours. So by default, when you select a device on the user interface, you will see the last 24 hours worth of data. But you can zoom in on that to whatever you want. So the last 5 minutes or the last 6 months, it's entirely up to you. So you can have a macro view of your data history, or you can have a micro view of your data history. Now, some people like to use SNMP for their monitoring health purposes. So this doesn't replace the SNMP interface. That SNMP interface is still there and can still be configured to be used for either your own third-party use if you wish, or if you wish to publish the SNMP data to this platform, instead of publishing the MQTT over TLS data to this platform, you can also configure and enable that, and it will still be presented in the same way. But really, what we'd like to point out is that the MQTT data channel goes here, and if you wish to publish the same data via SNMP elsewhere, because you might already have services you provide for other purposes for monitoring data, then that is also possible. It's not an either-or situation. You can do both at the same time. Just thinking aloud, before I go into the Assure Auth stack, I think it might be a good time to just show you some of this. So let me see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Oops. Okay, so here I've got a WebAccess DMP. I have logged in, so I've signed in as this particular user over here. I have 2 devices available to me. I'm going to just click down to my devices. And you can see here they're represented. I'll pick this one. This is the one I have at home with me because, like most of you, I guess, I am now working from home. So this is the default monitoring view that I was speaking about. And you can see the data is published every 15 minutes. So 15-minute intervals by default. And this is a 24-hour view. So this data is being reported by the device. And you can see if I go down along, there's different aspects that we're publishing on the visualization interface here. First one is cellular data usage. Then we've got some instantaneous mobile speeds. So you can see that generally speaking, it's all very low. Even the peaks here are pretty low in terms of mobile speeds, but that's really because there is no data that is really needed to be transferred. We're not transferring user modules or firmware updates. For example, this chart shows us a breakdown per carrier. So if we have a device that's changing cell towers or changing cellular providers all the time, then you would see that visualized here. In my case, it isn't. A number of stats. So this is again for the last 24 hours. So over the last 24 hours, I've had 1.795 megabytes downloaded and 1.988 megabytes uploaded. I can see a history of signal quality. So I can see here that my signal quality variance, it doesn't vary very much. Signal quality right now is around the -11. It's -6 right now, but -11 is about the average. And these are the internal conditions reported. So again, 2 things we report on internal conditions: the current voltage and the current temperature. And here we've got the total number of cells. So every time the signal, or every time the cell interface uses a different cell tower, that's counted as a change of cell tower. So you can see that the number of cell towers goes up over time. There's a reset. This device is scheduled to reset itself in the middle of every night. So it just does an automatic reboot and starts again. So it starts counting again. This one here shows neighbors. So in some circumstances, if you have an LTE signal, you will have interference from neighbor signals. And if you get that, you will see that here. So in my case, I don't have that. So that's just the default views. Now, if I click into this, I can expand this. So as you see, this is last 24 hours. I can decide to only look at, for example, the last 1 hour. So I want to zoom in on something in particular over the last hour, and I can see I've got 4 samples over the last hour, and that's the data. And the whole chart, the whole thing shows the same data samples. So everything scales, not just the top one, everything scales. And then if I want to go back, for example, over the last 7 days, I just click last 7 days, and it gives me a macro, a zoomed out view of the last 7 days. So you can see the same pattern recurs on a daily basis on my device, which is nice to be able to see. And I can see over the last 7 days, my point in time download and upload have changed. So it's 12.4 megabytes downloaded, 13.9 uploaded. So that's just an example of how this user interface works. I guess if there's something that you want to zoom in on in the past, so for example, you want to know what happened around here, you can just click and zoom on the chart itself, and it will just zoom in on that particular set of data that you just highlighted. And again, every chart zooms into the same data range on the time series. And again, you can zoom in again, and again, all the charts will just do that. So this is quite a useful monitoring interface. A question we've been asked before is, can you export all of this? And the answer is yes, you can. So there's a share option for each of these charts. There's a share option. You can click share, and you can pick what way you want to share this, including if you want to do basically an Excel or CSV output. That's an available option. Or you can share the entire dashboard. So there's a number of things you can do to make that data available elsewhere. Now, again, just to highlight, the data you see here presented in this way, all of that data is available via the APIs. So if you don't want to use our visual presentation of this data, you can always create your own dashboards and visual representations of the data using the APIs yourself. So I'll go back to 24-hour view, which is the default. So again, just to go back to default, I can pick a different device, and you'll see that everything just goes back to the defaults, which is 24-hour view. Okay, so that's monitoring. So now is probably a good time to talk about AssureAuth. So what is AssureAuth on the WebAccess DMP platform? It's a number of things, but I guess one of the most important things is it is a full public key infrastructure. And Advantech is a certificate authority which creates the root of trust between the clients and the device and the server side. We have addressed what's known as the 3 A's of security in the entire platform. So they are authentication, authorization, and accountability. So for everything that you do on the platform, first you have to authenticate yourself with the platform. So you must have credentials to do that. Secondly, you must be authorized to take actions or to do activities on the platform. So that's done via the granular permissions that I spoke about earlier. And lastly, every action you take must be an accountable action. So we have an audit trail. So all these actions are logged in an audit trail in the service. We've addressed the question that's very often asked is, what is security? And typically security is kind of bottled down to 3 different things, they being encryption. So every data, all the data you have is encrypted. So that means, well, it means 2 things. It's encrypted in transit and encrypted at rest. So all of your data that's in transit, so between device and cloud service, is fully encrypted, start to finish, end to end, but also data at rest. So all the data we store in our database infrastructure in the back end is all fully encrypted at rest. So even if in the very, very unlikely event of someone being able to hack through all the other layers of infrastructure and firewalls, etc., to get into the database backend, the data itself is fully encrypted and can't be read. We also have the integrity taken into account. So basically, how do you know that the data is integral data? So the data is as it is intended to be when you see it. And again, that's addressed. So we know that as our data is being created and published and presented on the platform, that data integrity is maintained throughout the platform. And we've already talked about the authentication aspect. So in order to be able to access the platform and the environment, you must be able to authenticate yourself with that platform and the environment. The picture on the right-hand side here, I don't think it's, no, I'll just talk about that. So we will talk, this is on another slide, I'll just touch it here. Basically, we've got two aspects. So there's the aspect of the device being managed. So for the device being managed, we have a client. And then on the server side itself, there are a number of servers or services that are independent of each other. First is the Bootstrap server. Second is the management server, and the third is a content server. So I will talk about these shortly. So in the context of WebAccess DMP and lightweight M2M, so when we started this revisioning of the future, we did a lot of searching for what we considered to be best-in-class device management methods. And we kind of landed on lightweight M2M, which is published by OMA SpecWorks, OMA SpecWorks itself being one of the OMA family of standards. And that defines a lot of the best practice that needs to be done in order to manage remote devices. Our device has a lightweight M2M client on it. Lightweight M2M specs say that you need 4 logical interfaces between the server side and the client side. They being the Bootstrap interface, a client registration and device management interface, a service enablement interface, and an information reporting interface. So we've abbreviated those to what we call BS, CR, DM, and IR, but we do provide all 4 of those interfaces. The lightweight M2M stack itself defines an efficient payload that uses a CoAP protocol and the datagram TLS security layer, which is good for things like UDP or SMS bearers. Now, this is one of the places that our stack differs pretty significantly. What we actually use is MQTT and not CoAP. So we use the MQTT protocol, and we use TLS and not DTLS, which basically means that we can use this for TCP communication. So we have TCP over TLS over MQTT. Is effectively the secure stack between device side and server side. But we do offer all 4 of these interfaces. And in fact, we introduced a 5th one, which is the content server. So in our picture here, we have a Bootstrap server, which is completely functionally separate to all the other servers in the server cluster. We bundle the client registration, device management, and information reporting services into one server cluster, which we call the management server. And then we added a content server. So the content server is another interface, and this is what enables us to have our user modules and edge intelligence platform, and enables us to enable you to add to that library of edge intelligence capabilities by providing content to the content server. And everything is overseen by the trust store and root of trust, which comes down to the certificate authority that Advantech has created for this purpose. In terms of bootstrapping, the lightweight M2M standard defines 4 bootstrap modes. The 4 are listed here. Factory bootstrap, which means the device is pre-configured from the manufacturing factory, pre-configured and pre-authorized. The second is bootstrap from smart card, so from a SIM card or UICC card. The third is client-initiated bootstrap, which means the client itself can request bootstrapping information about the services being offered, management server. And the fourth is a server-initiated bootstrap, which means the server side can trigger a complete renewal of bootstrapping from each independent clients. So it triggers the client to do a client-initiated bootstrap. We have implemented 3 of these 4. So the only one we have not implemented is the second one here, bootstrap from smart card. All 3 of the others are fully supported on the platform and on the devices. And if, as in some situations and circumstances, we or you might have customers that have their own device authority. in which case they might want to use their own certificates rather than using Advantech certificates to do the bootstrapping and provisioning of the authenticated devices. So our API enables you to be able to do that yourself. So you can add your own certificates to the platform or create your own device authority for that purpose. Just a quick summary of what AssureAuth means. It provides, WebAccess DMP provides best-in-class security. We use proven cybersecurity standards like TLS and X509 certificates. The bootstrap service means that devices can enroll automatically, but they must have been created on the management server first. So that is a precondition. The management server needs to know that they exist. And we have a full public key infrastructure that is flexible and can be manipulated for your own needs if necessary. Okay, so now the next topic I'm going to talk about is getting started. So how do you get your router onto the platform? So the first thing is installing the client on the router in the first place. So we have a client called WebAccess DMP Client. You see it here listed on the router user interface. You can get that client from your provider. So in this case, MCS will provide that for you. The latest version is as of today. So there was a release this morning, version 2.03. The latest published version is actually 2.01. So that's the one that we have on our website right now. Then you'll install this user module on your router, and the client will automatically bootstrap and connect with wadump.com. And the question we often get asked is, can you do this on V2 routers? And the answer is yes, you can. So I can show you an example of that here. So again, this is my router user interface. You go to the user modules under customization here to see the list of, let me just relog in. To see the list of user modules. So you can see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 user modules installed. And just to show you, this device is actually on the platform. It's this one here, SmartFlex. So if I click through to the user modules interface here, what I can see is that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 user modules listed. So the platform already knows that these 5 user modules are installed, and it knows which versions of those user modules are installed. So this is the user module that we've just installed. So just to show you what it looks like for configuration purposes, this client can be turned off. If I turn it off, then it will not connect with the platform anymore. We can tell it which bootstrap server to bootstrap against. So again, this is, well, it's not really necessary, and I recommend you don't touch this actually. But if there is some time in the future where you need to be able to re-provision your device to bootstrap and authenticate against a different server, then this is where you would do that. The monitoring is enabled here via this tick box. So if I turn this off, then monitoring will stop. I won't do that. But the interesting piece is, if you want to be able to claim your device on the platform, you need to know 4 things. You need to know the MAC address, the serial number, and the IMEI. So this is an easy way to find them. So you can just click on this here and you'll see this is how I claim my device. So I think what might be useful to do now is just to delete this user module altogether. So I'll just delete it. So now the client is no longer on my device. It should take, see, so here we can see that the device is now considered to be offline because it no longer has a device running. So I'm going to put it back on. If I go back to my devices here, you'll see that that device is now considered to be offline. This one is considered to be online. And I just add that user module back in again. So this is a V3, so I'll put this one on. So it has the user module. I can see the user module is here. I can click through. It's enabled by default. Monitoring is enabled by default. And it's the same device as I saw before. And it's already back and online. So it's already reconnected to the server. So you can see our uptime is now changed to a few seconds. And that's really how quick and easy it is to get your device onto the platform. You just install the user module, and it will appear, provided that device is claimed, which is something I'll come to very soon. Of course, you have to have an account on the platform, so you have to be logged in with an account. To create a user on the platform, there are really two main ways to do this. So the first way is your user and entire tenancy may be created by a system administrator, which is, I guess, somebody like me or somebody in MCS, or a company administrator, which means this is the administrator of the company that you're going to be added to. Then they can add you as a user to the system, and automatically you will receive an emailed invitation. After you receive the emailed invitation, you must set your own credentials. So you will set your own password at that point in time. No one else will ever know what that password is. You'll be the only person ever to know what that password is. It will be hashed and encrypted before it gets written to the database. A new user may also self-create themselves. So there's a sign up here, and you'll see on your login screen. I'm already logged in, so it's not going to show me the login screen. Let me just log out and I'll show you that. Okay, so this is the login screen. If you don't have an account, you can sign up. So this is the sign up button here. When you sign up, you'll be asked first name, surname, your email address. You must put in your password at this point in time. And when you take the next step, you'll be asked to create the company. So you must have a company or a tenancy that you're creating yourself into. If you self-create, you basically get a limited version of the product. So you get a limit of 5 devices that you can add, and you will not be able to create any other tenancies or companies. But other than that, everything works as I'm showing you today. Of course, once you've created an account for yourself, you're going to want to manage devices. So how do you get devices into your company account? So that's something I'm going to show you next. So I'm going to go back to login here, just log in again. Okay, so I look at my devices. We've already seen that we've played with this one. So actually, the first thing I'm going to do is remove this from my company account. So I'm going to click on this link over here, which is how I release that device. So just before I release it, we're going to take note of the MAC address, serial number, the MAC address and serial number are listed here. When I claim it again soon, I'm going to use the router's interface to do that. Where's it gone? Am I still sharing? Folks, can you still see my screen? Is it still sharing?
Paul, you're not sharing.
Paul, we see only the Zoom meeting topic.
On the bottom,
okay.
Yes.
Now it's
You're back. You're back. Yeah. Okay, my apologies. My apologies. Okay, so I've just opened the router interface again. So we still have the client installed. From here, I'm going to release the device from my account. So release device, yes. So now that the device has been released, it means it can be claimed by anyone else that knows what the MAC address, serial number, and IMEI code for that device are. But I'm just going to reclaim it back to this company. So the claiming of devices is done using this button here, the paperclip at the top. I'm going to claim the device. So this is just metadata I'm typing in here. And then I need to know what the MAC address, serial number, and IMEI are. So as I showed you earlier on, they're listed here on top. So I'm just going to copy these. Sorry, let me just refresh because that device is no longer there. I'm going and close that window so we don't get confused again. Oh. At this point, we have to basically select the company that we want to claim the device to. Now, in this case, in this particular login, my user only has access to one company, so I only get one company in that list. So I submit that, and it's added. And we can see here, because this was already in this company, and because the client was running always, the client didn't stop running, I didn't remove the client from the device. Just by claiming it to my company, it knows it's already been up and running for 6 minutes. And I didn't lose any of the history from monitoring either, because this was last claimed to this company anyway. So the whole history is still here. So I didn't lose any of those things. But that's just to show you how you claim your device to your company. Okay. So in terms of entity relationships, we have users, companies, and permissions, and they're all related somehow. A company is a logical entity. It's like a tenancy, and we associate devices and users to companies. Each device may be claimed by one and only one company, and that's an important thing to know. So it's a one-to-one relationship. If a device is claimed by a company, it cannot be claimed or seen by any other company. Each user must exist in at least one company, but a user may exist in many companies, as long as, well, they may have the same permissions, but they must be assigned permissions per company. A user, including the company admin, may only assign permissions that they already have themselves. So if you don't have a permission for something, that you cannot assign that permission to somebody else. This is what the company or the permissions look like. So for me, in this particular company, what I have is I am the company administrator. So if you create yourself, if you're the first person to create a company, then you will by default be the company admin for that company. And the things that I'm authorized to do, I can view, create, edit, and delete users. I can view, create, edit, and delete companies. I can view, I can claim and release, and I can edit devices. I cannot delete devices, and that's a standard normal default position to be in, because deleting devices really means removing them, purging them, if you like, from the database. And that's not a permission that we give to anybody, really. That's a system administrator type permission. These advanced permissions, you can have permission to manipulate, add user modules, etc., to the App Store. You can have permissions to create developer API endpoint clients that use the API on your behalf. And this last one, again, this is one we don't give. This is if there's a need to bootstrap or re-provision your device to be authenticated with a different server cluster, you need this permission here, which is the device management server permission. And lastly, the manufacturing permission. This is how we create devices in the database in the first place. And this permission is reserved for our manufacturing entity. When we create a new user, we must select which company that user is going to be in. So in this example, in my screenshot, I have 3 companies. So this user may be, this new user I'm creating may be put into all of the companies that I have access to. In this case, there are 3 companies, or I may select to create that user and just give him access to one of those companies. And by default, when you create a user, as you can see here in the picture, there are no default permissions. So again, show you that in real time, maybe the best thing to do. So I go to users on the menu, I create a new user. Then here, I've got to pick a company. And you can see when I create a new user, there are no permissions assigned to that user. So I have to deliberately create and give permissions to users to do anything on the platform. This is the default permission set for self-sign-up. So when you sign yourself up, there are some limitations to what you're allowed to do. Like, for example, you cannot create or edit or delete companies, and you don't get access to the API endpoints for the App Store or the API or creating clients for yourself, etc. But it's not that restrictive. There's a company hierarchy. So again, as you claim and create companies, so if I create a company from root, then I get a level 1 company. I can then create a company below that, and so on. For claiming devices to companies, we've seen all of this. For releasing devices, I've shown you an example. You click on the release button, which is the one on the right hand side here. And you can create, view, update, or delete users and companies. Okay, so now next I want to introduce AssureSync, which is one of the nice features that we have on the platform. It basically means that we can do assured configuration on each and every device you have in your asset farm. So we've introduced device twin, a digital twin device model. We have full granular configuration, so every independent individual setting that you have available to you on your device is configurable as a desired state parameter, which is our desired configuration states. We've added pinning, so we've added the pin features, which basically means you can pin a firmware version, or you can pin a user module and a user module version on your device. And if they're subsequently removed locally at the device, then the platform will detect that and push them back down again, so that they're effectively pinned. And we have a back-end sync engine that maintains the desired states, including the pinned states. And there's just a little graphic here on the right that shows you a simplified representation for how this works. So we have a desired state that's configured via the UI or via an API, gets stored into the database as a desired state for a device. There's a sync engine that calculates the difference between a desired state and a reported state. Every time a new device connects with the platform, it reports all of its configuration settings and user modules and settings. The sync engine then compares the differences. It sends all differences to the high availability broker for delivery. As the settings are configured on the devices, and the devices report them back. So every time a configuration item is sent, its state on the actual device is reported back. That goes through our reporting service, which then goes into the reporting database, which then gets represented on the user interface. A desired state is a set of configurations that the platform user desires to be configured on his or her remote device. A reported state is a set of configurations that the remote device reports to the platform. The platform maintains the desired and reported state per device independently. The user interface indicates in sync if both the desired and the reported states match. The user interface displays real-time status. So the best thing to do here is to actually show you this. So again, I'll use my demo device here. I go to the configuration option. So we've already seen this icon symbol up here, which shows a green circle around a device. It's got a tick mark here, which indicates online. So if that's green with the tick, it means the device is online. If it's green with a circular symbol here, it means that device is in sync, which basically means that if the desired state that we've configured on the platform matches with the actual state on the device as it is reported by the device. So in this example, I can go down and see that, well, my Wi-Fi here has got a little symbol, which means that I have configured desired state for Wi-Fi. Is it the only one? I've also configured some desired state for SNMP. So if I click into Wi-Fi here, I'll see that actually this is the only configuration item that I have configured desired state for. And I know that because of this slider. This slider is basically enabled, which means I want to control this as a desired setting from the platform. So if I go down to SNMP, we'll see something similar. So I see that I want to control this setting as a desired setting from the platform. I also see that this setting has been applied to the device. So we know that the device came online today during this demo, and we can see that that configuration was reapplied at that time when it came back online. But this was actually submitted on the 18th of March. So this particular configuration for desired state, we submitted to the platform itself on the 18th of March. I haven't touched it since then, but it has been reapplied as recently as today. So the device has reported it back to us as this is the way it is today. Now, if I change that so I can just turn it on, that particular setting is not submitted. And I also see that the reported value from the device is not checked as of this date and time. So what that tells me is, well, I have a new desired state here. I've enabled the SNMP agent, but I've never submitted it. And that is not the same as what's on the device. Now I'll submit that. And we can see here that this symbol changes immediately. And I don't know if you saw that, but it changed back. So basically that desired state is now submitted as of this date and time, and it is applied as of this date and time. So that took 3 seconds to go from desired state on the platform to reported back from the device. I'll just do it again as another example. So what we're looking for is that symbol there that says we're out of sync or we're in sync. I'll just go down and submit. Scroll back up. Now it's out of sync. We'll just keep an eye on that. Refresh, because that should have reported itself back up. Okay, that hasn't synced up yet. So basically back in the back end, the sync engine is going to be figuring out that this is now not in sync, and it will be working to resynchronize it. So we're just going to leave that for now and come back to it. When I go to my user modules, I don't know if you noticed, but as I was talking about user modules there, it went back in sync. That took longer than I expected, but it's back in sync now and everything is the way I expect it to be. These are the user modules that I have on my platform. You can see there's a pin here. So the pin means if I want that particular user module and that particular version to stay on the device, I can pin it. So I can click the pin. It means that version is pinned. So if I do another example here, just go to the router. I'll take daily reboot and I will delete it. Let's do that again, daily reboot, delete, yes. You see on the local device, the daily reboot user module is gone. So the sync engine will work in the background. There will be some updates here. It will detect the fact that, well, you've just detected it there, the daily reboot disappeared. But because it was pinned, so we see that it's now considered to be out of sync. As it's re-establishing the fact that it's there, it's now back in sync again. Now, if I go and look at the router interface, I just refresh the router interface itself, I can see the daily reboot is back. And that's because the platform side detected in the sync engine that we have a pinned user module at version 1.12. So if it gets removed locally from the device itself, the platform detects that and then reinstalls it automatically. Which brings us to the user modules. Are we okay for time, folks? Can we continue on, or do I need to wrap this up?
No, it's okay, Paul.
Okay. So in terms of user modules, we can see this is the existing user modules that are available from the platform today for that device type. And in order to install or uninstall, so for example, I can decide to install a different version. These are all the same versions, GPS. I can decide to install a different version of GPS just by selecting it from here, and then hitting apply or install. And then that version changes. You can see different status here. So again, different real-time status. So currently, you saw that it was gray and then it turned green. And you had a different state here. So right now it's installed, and before that it was in delivery mode. So I think the best thing to do maybe would be to delete this, uninstall it, and just do that again from scratch. So now it's gone from here. We should also see that if I look at the router itself, it will be gone from the router. Just refresh the router view. So GPS user module is now gone from the router. So now if I choose to install GPS, just click it here. It's 1.6.4, install, and just watch the different states here. So it's now downloaded, it's now delivered to the device. It's now installed. And it's pinned actually, so it's pinned by default. So now I need to go and check the router itself. And we see that it is actually installed on the device. So there's just an example of how quick and easy it is to select and deliver user modules to each individual device, and the activity of the pin and what the pin means. So we looked at configuration. One thing I haven't highlighted is if you want to pin a firmware version, so it has the same exact behavior as what I just showed you. If I use this pin here, so I can click on the pin and say this firmware version is now pinned, that means that if somebody on the router upgrades the firmware locally on the router will report that new firmware version back to the platform. The platform will check its pin status and say, oh, but the new version of firmware that you have reported is not the version that was pinned for this device. So it will basically reload the pinned firmware version. So in this case, 6.1.10 is the pinned firmware version. So that will automatically happen because this, once you make the pin, it becomes a desired state. So this is what you want to have always on that device from the platform. So I'm not going to pin the version of firmware. Okay, so that's keep going the wrong direction. That's our desired. That's AssureSync, I guess, in some examples. The other things to understand is the status symbols. So there are, I guess, 5 different combinations of symbols. So the ones we just looked at online and in sync, we've seen the operation of those. So it's possible that you have an offline device. It's not online, but it is in sync. So what does that mean? That basically means that right now your device is not online, it's turned off, or the client is turned off, or for some reason the device itself cannot connect with and communicate with the platform side. But the platform still considers it to be in sync because the last time that device reported its state, that state matched with the configured desired state for that device. So it's considered to be in sync. We also have the possibility of being not online and not in sync. So what that tells us is, well, right now it's not online, it's not communicating with the platform, but also we know that the last time it reported its configuration state, it did not match the desired state for that device. Or the second scenario you could see this would be if you have configured or post-configured, so the device was online, you turned it off, and then you configured a desired state for the next time that it gets turned on, then it would consider it to be not online and not in sync. And the last state you can see here is the gray symbol. The gray symbol basically means that that device has never reported itself or connected with the platform. So the platform doesn't know anything about it. So you can have a claimed device in your account, but not know anything about it from the platform point of view because the device itself has never connected and never reported its configuration. But that doesn't mean you can't pre-configure it. You can still pre-configure an unknown device. Okay, let's keep going through the presentation here. Okay, so you've already seen a glimpse of the dashboard, but there's 2 dashboard views. The first one is the aggregated dashboard view, which basically means that you get an aggregated overview of all of the companies that your user is in. So you can have a user in many companies. and you will see basically a summary of all the devices in all of those companies, across all of those companies. You'll see things like total devices, online, offline, devices in sync or not in sync, device types, etc. Then the second type of dashboard view is what we call the company dashboard view. So you get a per company view of the devices in that company, only one company at a time. And again, probably the best way to see this is just to come back here and have a look. My example here is not good because I only have one company, but this is how you would filter views per company. Unfortunately, the filter view is the same as the all view in this case. And then when I go into the company dashboard itself, again, I've only got one company that I can select, but you get the last 24-hour status for this company. And then again, because it's Grafana, we can also filter back out. So you can decide to just look at our last 7 days on a per company basis, for example. So they're my two devices, connectivity history over the last 7 days. That brings us on to the API. So our API is found at api.behandelt.com. As I've said already, this is it's a full API and it's fully enabled. It's REST-based. We have both synchronous and asynchronous support. So as you were observing during that demonstration, how we know that the device is back in sync is when the device reports itself back up. And that's all done through the information reporting interface, one of the interfaces I talked about earlier on. And that interface is an asynchronous interface. We have device management and configuration, all via the API, full audit history and reporting. WebAccess itself, so what you see in terms of this user interface, this entire user interface experience is built using those APIs. So we're not doing anything magic behind the scenes here. The APIs that you see available to you, and I just go to them. Again, it's api.behandelt.com. Click on the API gallery here, and then just pick the API list. So this is the public API, and everything you see on the user interface that I've shown you today is all done using these APIs. So all of this is possible to be done yourself if you wish, and you can skin this any way you want, or just take a subset of what you want and decide to build your own or integrate with your own solution stack. And I think the last thing I want to show you really is some API examples. So we have other resources that I introduced earlier on, like docs.behandelt.com. So up there, just to highlight this one, GitHub, one of our resources is in the source repository. So in our source repository, we have published some Jupyter notebooks. And the Jupyter notebooks are all, they're written in Python. They all use our own APIs, but also other APIs. So I've got an example here that has a Python script running in Jupyter Notebook that uses both the calls to our own APIs, but also uses a Google API to plot locations in a map. I'm going to use that example now. We have basically written these. We hope they're self-documenting code examples. And the nice thing about Jupyter Notebooks is you can run them inline, so you don't need to establish your own runtime environment. So you can actually see these examples, see the code, and run the code without having to create your own environment to run them in. So I'll just go to that example again. Go to docs.behandelt.com. I'll just click here on the source repository. And that brings, one of the things we get to here is Jupyter Notebooks. So I'm just going to click on Jupyter Notebooks here. And we see that there are a number of scripted examples all using the API. I'm going to use this one called geolocate all. So what this does is it will go to basically my devices. So I've clicked on that. The next thing is you got to pick how you want to run this. So if you just want to read code, you can just read the code. But if you want to also run it, you got to pick somewhere you want to run it in. So I'm going to run in Binder. Now this might take a little time to load up because we're depending on internet services for this. So one of the things on our existing API is the GPS location. If the GPS location is reported, you see a plot on the map here, but only one of my devices is capable of reporting GPS. So only my SmartFlex is capable of reporting GPS. My UR5i is not. But you can also plot general location based on what the LAC or the cell tower ID of the device. So that information is actually available to us, but we haven't built it into our standard user interface. So we haven't built in that type of geolocation into the user interface you see here. But the example that I want to run when this loads, if this loads, will allow us, it's loading now, to plot the location based on cell tower ID. I'm just going to make this a trusted site while I run this. Okay, so before I start, I just need to make sure that the defaults that I'm using are correct. So our global environment here, this is not our staging environment. This is our live environment. So I'm just going to save that. Okay, I'm going to start now. You see what I'm doing here is I'm running each code block one by one. So when you have more time, feel free to read through the code and see how it's put together. So this one is going to ask me for my credentials to log into the platform. So you see here, I get a prompt live on screen. And I have created a nice simple password for me to remember to use today. And okay, bear with me a second. I need to find my Google API key. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I have my API key. Now it's going to load a map. It doesn't have anything to plot on the map yet, but the map is loaded. Next, it's using our API to get a list of devices. So it sends a post request. You see that I'm getting authenticated and I get my response here. So these are the list of my devices. Now it's making a request to get the data from the data set that's available via the APIs about where exactly these devices are located. So it's telling me here that only one out of my 2 devices have GPS information available. So then it's putting out information about cell ID. And this is all we get the request response. And finally, it's going to show this on the map. So it's now showing 2 devices out of 2 with cell tower information. So I'm going to scroll back up here to see this displayed on my map. So now you see I've got 2 devices showing on the map, and I can zoom in on these. I can see, so in this representation we're using in this example, we're showing basically the downward pin is the actual GPS location and the upward pin is the cell tower location. So I now have a general location for both devices and I have an exact location for one of them. So again, I can zoom in here. So what this is showing me, because I know where I live, this is my house. This is exactly where I am right now. This is the exact GPS location of that device, whereas the cell tower location is identifying as just over here. So they're actually pretty close in this example, but it shows you how you can get a general location without needing to know the GPS coordinates using this API set. And then the other one that I have is basically, it's in my office in Galway. So it's up here. I'm going to zoom in on this. And in this case, it doesn't have exact GPS coordinates, but the API set is telling me that this is the cell tower ID. So this is the location of the cell tower that it's communicating with right now. Whereas the actual office is, where's the actual office? It's about here, where my mouse is now, that's where the office is. So again, it's not exact, but it's pretty close. And that's just to finish up with an example of how to use the API using the published documentation that we have made available without making, well, in my case, I had to make one change because it was using the environment, which is the full environment and not just our test staging environment. But that's the only change I had to make, and you yourselves can run the same code and see how it works and see how to further enhance the capabilities of wadump.com by using your own imagination and the tools we have provided. And that's it for me. So thank you very much for your attention today. My sincere apologies that I've run so far over time. I got carried away. I hope you found this useful. Thank you to MCS, Frank and Jan and Caroline and all the team there for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of Advantech and on behalf of MCS. And we hope you find this useful. And I think we'll open the floor for questions now. Is there anybody still here?
Yeah. Hi, Paul. This is Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about WebAccess. Is it possible to send alarms when a unit is disconnected?
It's possible. It's not built into the user interface, but it's possible using the API set, because we know immediately when devices are disconnected. And today we represent that status on the user interface, but we don't send alarms. So, but if that's something that you want to do, then it's absolutely possible to do it. It's just not done like in the existing user interface that we have currently built.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Paul, I see Timo has a question for you in the chat.
Okay. In the chat. Will there be dedicated support contact for this platform? There will be, Timo, there will be support for this platform. We're currently training support people to help with questions.
Okay, Timo, Frank here. Timo is always critical and trying to make the best out of it. So that's a nice question, and we should set this up, the direct support with Advantech. Any other questions from the other attendees? If not, I would like to thank you, Paul, for your nice presentation. Questions or things that may raise afterwards may be asked, of course, to MCS, to me, and I will sure to get an answer together with Advantech. Maybe it's best I will switch over to Dutch, Paul, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
Voor degenen die aanwezig zijn, jullie hebben wellicht de actie gezien dat de komende weken elke nieuwe router, zeg maar, die je in dit platform wil hangen, alle nieuwe verbindingen met dit platform, die zijn gratis voor de komende 6 maanden. Normaal is er een bepaalde hosting fee, een bepaalde soort license, klein bedragje per maand zal het uiteindelijk gaan worden. Maar voor het komende half jaar, alle nieuwe devices die in dit platform gaan komen, die jullie daarin willen hebben, die zijn vooralsnog gratis. En na die 6 maanden zal de reguliere prijsstelling normaal gesproken gaan gelden. Deze actie loopt, we volgen daarin ook het RIVM, dus deze actie loopt voorlopig nog een week of 4. Dus ja, wil je hiermee aan de slag met dit mooie platform? Het kan nu kosteloos. En je kan inderdaad zelf, nou je hebt gezien, je kan zelf met enkele devices starten en uiteindelijk meerdere devices toevoegen. Dus mocht je daarmee aan de slag willen, nou, laat het even weten. Dan gaan we dat verder eventjes organiseren. Goed. Die actie is overigens ook gemaild. En nou, als er verder geen vragen zijn, dan wilde ik het eigenlijk hierbij laten en de webinar afsluiten. So Paul, I just introduced our promotion action to get devices into the platform for the coming months. Hopefully a lot of guys and a lot of companies and customers will do this in the coming weeks. It's also been emailed around through our customer portfolio. So yeah, so that the customers can play around and add their devices to the platform and get acquainted with the nice features. So thanks again, Paul, for your very nice and interesting presentation. And then for now, I think we will close this webinar. Wishing you a very nice day. Stay cool, keep healthy, and hope to talk to you yeah, soon again.
Very soon. Okay, great. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.